330 AD, 4224 AM. The ancient city of Greek Byzantium was founded in 661 BC, and in this year, 990 years later, or 330 times 3, in 330 AD, the Emperor Constantine relocates the seat of the Roman Empire from Rome to Byzantium, changing its name to Constantinople. The city of Rome in Italy continues, with success, to assume the powers of authority over the rapidly growing Christian world, as the political power of empire is transferred to Byzantium. Constantine takes with him a huge library of Christian texts to Byzantium. In this year, the Greek historian of Roman histories, Ammianus Marcellinus, is born. The descendants of Israel have literally filled the continents of Europe, much of Asia and northern Africa, and the calendrics for this year are very important. This year was the exact midpoint between the exodus of Israel from Egypt in 1447 BC, that happened 1776 years earlier, and the Great War of Armageddon in 2106 AD, or 6000 Annus Mundi, precisely 1776 years after 330 AD. This was 4,000 years since the years were counted, according to Jewish chroniclers, and it is 3168 years since the Anunnaki dynasty was founded before the flood in 2839 BC, or 792 times 4. This was also 1736 years after Israel was born as a nation in 1407 BC, or 4 judged time epochs. This year was also 1260 years after the divided kingdom chronology began, and 1584 years after the Israelite Danaan dynasty of Mycene was founded in 1255 BC. 1. The Archaix volume. 337 BC, 4231 AM. Constantine the Great died, and the Roman Empire is divided between his 3 sons, Constantine, Constantius, and Constans. Theirs will be a struggle one against the others for supremacy. 351 AD, 4245 AM. A brilliant comet like a cross appeared in the sky, witnessed by Cyril and the people of Jerusalem. It shined like the sun for several hours before disappearing. 1. Jesus, God, man, or myth. 354 AD, 4248 AM. Pope Liberius formally declared that the birthday of Jesus was December 25th, which he knew was the birthday of Mithras. This was also the birthday of many saviour gods who were crucified, deities all venerated before Christianity. Augustine of Hippo was born in this year, famous Christian historian, author of City of God. This year was the origin of Christmas, a Christian holiday that would become the most celebrated holiday on earth throughout the Western world. As the descendants of Israel have filled the Western world, we are not surprised to find these calendrics. Mithras was an Eastern and earlier version of Jesus, and the Eastern Vedic calendar of the Kali Yuga began 3456 years priorly, or 864 times 4. This was 3168 Anno Pyramid, or 792 times 4, the pyramid being the seal of Israel. This was 2592 years after the deluge, or 864 times 3, and it was 1800 years, 600 times 3, after the Exodus in 1447 BC, and 600 years after the Parthian dynasty was founded in Mesopotamia in 247 BC, where Mithraism flourished. Lastly, this was 666 years after the start of the Syrian Seleucid dynasty calendar in 313 BC, Syria being the cradle land of Christianity. 1. The 48 Laws of Power. 367 AD, 4251 AM. The fixed Jewish calendar was instituted in this year, a system that approximated the new moons by which the calendar of the Hebrews was to be measured. It had become difficult for the Jews, a widespread race separated in their communities, from keeping the same calendar. Roman Emperor Constantius, son of Constantine the Great, erected an obelisk taken from Thebes in Upper Egypt. His father had priorly removed the monument from Egypt and brought it to Italy on a gigantic boat, requiring 300 rowers up the Nile and over the Mediterranean. Thousands of labourers using pulleys and cranks were needed to lift the stone relic into a standing position. This was 324 years, 108 times 3, after the 33 AD crucifixion event. 1. Ammianus Marcellinus, Book 17. 358 AD, 4252 AM. Terrible earthquakes shook the cities of Macedonia, Asia, Pontus, Bithynia, with Nicomedia, the capital of Bithynia, taking the worst. At dawn on August 24th, the clear sky quickly gave way to thick masses of black clouds that descended to the ground, blotting out the sun, rendering everything invisible. Ammianus Marcellinus reports that the unusual destruction began from the sky in the form of loud crashes, winds, fatal thunderbolts, and a torrential downpour, which was all accompanied by an earthquake. Just as fast as it occurred, the quake ceased, the sky cleared, and a beautiful day was ruined by the sight of broken cities with thousands of torn bodies among the piles of debris. Survivors were transfixed on sharp timbers to die slowly, while others were buried alive under the rubble, where their moans were heard unceasingly until they expired. Many people trapped in the lower recesses of the building starved to death, and a fire spread through the broken city of Nicomedia, burning alive all those trapped in the ruins. By this time all these cities were Christian. This was the 900th year of the Buddhist calendar, from 543 BC. Jewish Rabbi Hillel III popularized the Jewish fixed calendar, his own invention, for the Jewish festivals and holy days, but this was in direct contravention to divine decree in the Old Testament statutes, which mandated calendrical periods to be observed by lunar phases. Interestingly, by coincidence, this calendar started 360 years after 2 BC birth of Christ. Hillel III wrote, quote, "After having viewed our present condition, it may be well for us to look back and review our former history, and get a knowledge of the state of the world in former times." Unquote. 1. Ammianus Marcellinus, Book 17.